guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing a very different video. This was an idea which was given to me by a subscriber. Many of you guys actually wanted to see this, a comparison between Puna Store brushes and Real Techniques brushes. So as you guys know, Real Techniques is actually a very good brand when it comes to makeup applicators. They make amazing brushes, they make amazing sponges. I absolutely love that Miracle sponge. I love that stuff. Like, it gives you such a beautiful finish. It's very soft. So I want to see whether Puna Store compares to Real Techniques. So without further ado, let's get started. If you guys do not know where to buy Puna Store stuff, you will get it on Amazon, and Real Techniques you can order it from their website itself. I would not recommend buying them from Amazon or from Nykaa, because I feel like Nykaa sells it too expensive, and Amazon, there are things on Amazon which are not really genuine, so you do not know the authenticity from Amazon. So I usually tend to buy Real Techniques from their site itself. They do ship to India, but you do have to pay customs. So the first product that I'm going to be comparing are the makeup sponges. Now, as you guys can see, Puna Store actually replicates the exact same thing that Real Techniques does. Looking at these two from far away, they look so similar. I have not felt it, I have not used it. I have used the Real Techniques one, but I have not tried the Puna Store one. So this is gonna be like a first impressions on the Puna Store one. First, let's discuss the prices. So on the Real Techniques website, the Miracle Complexion sponge is of 431 rupees. But if you buy the pack of two, you will get it lesser in price, around 800 rupees, and including customs, I think you will get the two set, like the 2-pack set, for around 1000 rupees. And the Puna Store one retails for 899 rupees. So actually there's not much of a difference between the two. Only thing is the availability of Puna Store is better than the availability of Real Techniques. So this is the Puna Store one, and this is the Real Techniques one. Now, as you can see, the color is not exactly the same. There's a slight difference. The Real Techniques one is a little bit darker orange, and this is a little bit more brighter. And the main difference that I can see in the two of them is that the cut right here is larger in the Puna Store one, and the cut right here is smaller on the Real Techniques one. And the feel of both the sponges are pretty much similar, but the Real Techniques one is kind of harder and it has a little bit of texture feel to it. This one is pretty smooth. It feels pretty rubbery, but let's see how they apply on the face. So I'm just gonna wet the sponges. These are the dry sponges. I'm gonna wet them and see how much they grow in size and all of that. So I've wet the sponge already, and as you guys can see, they pretty much load up quite a lot. Like, they have increased in size like crazy. Now both their sizes are pretty much similar, as you can see, but there is a hell of a difference between both these sponges. I was so surprised when I was wetting the Puna Store one under the water. It felt so different. So let me tell you what are the differences. First of all, the Real Techniques sponge is very soft, and the texture feel on the sponge is still there. But the Puna Store one is not soft at all. In fact, it's become so hard from inside. I can actually feel like there's some substance inside. It's super dense, which is not a good thing actually. I have a feeling that once I start applying my foundation with this sponge, it's gonna leave marks. So I got you a little closer so that y'all can see better what is happening on my face. So the foundation that I'm gonna be using is my Nykaa Skin Genius foundation. Now this is a very easy foundation to apply, so I wanted to try this out because this is my everyday kind of a foundation. So this is the Real Techniques side, the right hand side, and the left hand side is the Puna Store side. So as you guys can see, I had applied quite a lot of foundation, but the only thing with the Real Techniques one is that it absorbs a lot of product, so there's a lot of product wastage. Otherwise, the application is pretty good. So if I go with another layer of this foundation again, I'm gonna get that medium coverage which I like. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I'm just gonna take a little bit and just build this foundation up. And as you can see, you don't get any kind of streaky application with this Real Techniques sponge at all. And on top of that, the sponge actually feels very good on your face. So now let's move on to the Puna Store side. I've applied exactly the same amount of foundation that I've applied on my right hand side. Let's go. I'm kind of skeptical to use this because looking at it, I don't feel like it's gonna be a good sponge, but let's see. Definitely not. So as I'm going, I can actually see the shape of the sponge making that imprint on my skin, but still blending it out. Like I blend one place and then I go to blend another area and it leaves that mark of the actual sponge, like the sharp edges of the sponge. I am getting that imprint on my face. So for my concealer, I'm going to be using my Prolong Wear Concealer. So we are going to use this edge to blend out the concealer. So as you can see, this was very quick to do. So now let's blend the Puna Store side. I'm again using the tip. So as I was using it, I actually cannot squeeze this sponge and go right in the edge. It's pretty, like, it takes a lot of efforts to do that, but otherwise it did blend my concealer pretty well. So I'm using my Cover FX translucent powder to set my entire face. First we are gonna bake with it under our eyes. So as you can see, the Puna Store side actually absorbed quite a lot of the translucent powder that I had applied, but the Real Techniques side deposited it pretty well on my face. So my final verdict is that the Real Techniques sponge is way better than the Puna Store one. So if y'all are looking to buy any of the two, I think y'all should go for the Real Techniques one because it's way more easier to use and it gives you a very flawless finish. On the other hand, the Puna Store one does not give you a very flawless finish. So now let's move on to the brushes. So these are the two brush sets that I have with me from Puna Store. These are the exact same ones as the Real Techniques one. Like the packaging and everything is pretty much very similar. So now let's try out the face brushes first and then we'll move on to the smaller detail brushes. So as you guys can see, you get a pack of 4 brushes and this retails for 8.99 rupees. So the Real Techniques one on the website costs 863 rupees. So including customs and everything, take it around 1200 rupees. So they both are pretty much similar in prices as well. So these are the Real Techniques one which I have in my hand and these are the Puna Store one. Now again, the Puna Store one, the color is a little bit lighter than the Real Techniques one and the pouch that you get is pretty different actually. So it is this pouch right here. It's made up of cloth. It's not a very good feeling pouch, but it's good for travel purposes. And the one which you get with Real Techniques is this one right here. It's more like a resin material and it's white in color. This one is black in color. So you get 4 brushes in this set. The first one is called as the buffer brush, but Puna Store brushes do not write what brushes these are, like the name of the brushes. So these are the 2 buffer brushes. This is the Puna Store one and this is the Real Techniques one. So the Real Technique one is very soft and it's a rounded brush. It's perfect for applying your foundation as well as contour products or blushes. That's what I use this brush for. And the Puna Store one is actually pretty similar feeling and it's pretty soft, but it's not as fluffy as the Real Techniques one. So we are gonna apply bronzer first and then we are gonna apply blusher with these brushes. So I'm using my NYX contour and highlight palette for this. Let's do the Puna Store side now. So as I said earlier, this brush is a little bit more denser than the Real Techniques one. So when you're applying a powder product like a bronzer or a blusher, this will apply it better because it has that bristles which are rounded right at the top of it, but it's yet loosely packed. It's not tightly packed, so it distributes the product very well. But on the other hand, with the Puna Store one, it's a little bit dense, so I am gonna take a lot of efforts to blend it out. So as you can see, this is a little bit too precise, but this is like a flush of color, very smoothly applied on my face. That is the only difference, but you can achieve it by blending it out pretty well with the Puna Store brush as well. So the next brush that I have in my hand is called as a contour brush. Now again, the feel is exactly the same. Only thing I feel like is this one is fluffier than the Real Techniques one. So normally I use this brush to actually contour with. So we are gonna do that. So as you can see, it gives me a very precise application of the product near the hollows of my cheek. So the feel of both the brushes on my face was pretty much similar. They applied the product pretty much same, like I got the exact contour shape that I want on my left hand side with the Puna Store brush as I got it on the right hand side with the Real Techniques one. So this gets a thumbs up from me. So the next two brushes that are there in the entire set are the pointed foundation brush and the detailer brush. Now, looking at both of them, they look exactly the same. I'm sure that they are gonna do the exact same job. They feel pretty much same. So guys, the 4-piece makeup brush set is actually very good from Puna Store. The only brush that I do not like in this set is the buffing brush. The buffing brush in the Real Techniques one is way better than the Puna Store one. So if you all are looking to buy a good brush set, I would still feel that go for the Real Techniques one rather than the Puna Store one. So the next brush set that I have is called as a 5-piece makeup brush set. This is what it looks like. Again, it comes with 5 brushes. This is the exact same palette of brushes as the Real Techniques one. So these are the Real Techniques one and this is the Puna Store one. Again, the packaging of Puna Store is different than the Real Techniques one. Okay, let me first tell you what all brushes do you get in this. The first brush that you get in this is called as the Deluxe Crease brush. The next one that you get is called as the Base Shadow brush. The next one is called as an Accent brush. Then there's a brow brush as well, and there's a fine liner brush as well. First, we are going to start with the Deluxe Crease brush and we are going to apply our transition shade first and see is it as good as the Real Techniques one. So first I'm going to do the Real Techniques side. I'm just going to take the bronzer shade that we used and going to apply that right in my crease. So we're going to do the Puna Store side now. Actual brush bristles, the Puna Store one is a little longer than the Real Techniques one, but the density is pretty much similar, so I'm hoping that it works also pretty similar to the Real Techniques one. So they pretty much work exactly the same. Now let's move on to the crease blending brush. So this is the Real Techniques one. Let's go to the shade which we applied as our contour shade first and contour our crease region. So now this is a very thin blending brush. This is perfect for precise application. So I'm applying that shade right in my crease. And this is the Puna Store one. Now the Puna Store one and the Real Techniques blending brushes, or the base shadow brush as they call it, is very different looking. As you guys can see, this has a little bit of tapered edge to it, but this is a rounded edge, and this is way more fluffier than the Real Techniques ones. So as I'm applying it, I can actually feel that this brush is pretty flimsy. Like, it's not exactly feeling like a precise application brush, and I feel like it's not doing much of a blending. It's just moving in weird directions, and it feels weird to apply the eyeshadow with this brush. So the last two brushes in the entire brush set is the accent brush and the fine liner brush. So this is the Real Techniques one and this is the Puna Store one. Now looking at them, they look exactly the same. Only difference in these two is that the accent brush is a little bit more wider, but it's very thin. So the thinness on both the brushes is pretty much similar. Only thing is that the Real Techniques one is a slight bit wider than the Puna Store one. And the liner brush actually are pretty different. Like, so the Real Techniques one is a little bit more denser than the Puna Store one. The Puna Store one does not have that many bristles in it. I do not usually tend to apply my liner with these kind of brushes, so these usually are of no use to me. So it does not really matter, but if you guys use these kind of brushes to apply your liner, keep that in mind that the Real Techniques one is a little bit more denser than the Puna Store one. And I feel like the Real Techniques one will do a little bit of a better job with a liner than the Puna Store one, because it does not have that much hold to it. So there was one more brush which I completely forgot. These are the brow brushes. Now the brow brushes are very different. As you guys can see, the Real Techniques one is a lot shorter and is a lot precise, whereas the Puna Store one is a lot longer and it's not as firm as the Real Techniques one. The Real Techniques one is way more slimmer and this one is not as slim as the Real Techniques one. Ow, something's itching on my nose. So we're going to apply our lower eyeshadow with this and let's see whether it does the exact same job. So application wise, both these brushes are pretty similar. They do the exact same thing, so that's a good thing. So I feel like the entire 5-piece brush set, the only brush that disappointed me was it's called as the base shadow brush. So I feel like that both the brush sets, the Puna Store one and the Real Techniques one, are pretty much similar, so y'all can go for any of those. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna complete my entire face of makeup and I'll be right back to give you my final thoughts. So guys, I've just finished my entire face of makeup. Now, as you guys can see, my right hand side is a lot smoother than the left hand side. The left hand side is a little bit patchy. That is because of that buffer brush that we use. So my final verdict, let's start off with the sponges first. So this is the Real Techniques one and this is the Puna Store one. The Real Techniques one is way better than the Puna Store one. So there's no two doubts in my mind which sponge you guys should go for. It's definitely the Real Techniques one. So the brush set, I feel like the brush set is pretty much similar to the Real Techniques one. The only thing in this brush set is that from the 4-piece one, I do not like the buffer brush that much because it does not do the exact same job as the Real Techniques one does, but otherwise all the other brushes are pretty much similar. The buffer brush can be used to apply foundation or can be used to apply your blusher or your contour shade, but make sure that you blend it out pretty well. It's going to take a little bit more effort. And the 5-piece brush set, the only brush that I did not like from this entire brush set is the crease shadow brush, the one which is not as tapered as the Real Techniques one, but it still does the exact same job. Like, I got the exact same look with the same brush itself. So yeah, I feel that these are good investments, but if y'all are getting the Real Techniques one at the same price, I think y'all should go for the Real Techniques one. So yeah, that's my final thought. I hope you guys like this video. Let me know in the comments section below what y'all would like to see next. So yeah, that's it for this one, and I'll see y'all in my next one very soon. Until then, bye.